Yeah. Shall I start first?
Yes.
Okay. فإن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار آمين. These Greatness of Allah series is a set of lectures and workshops with the explicit aim of demonstrating the greatness of Allah Ta'ala, which results in instilling His glory and greatness in our hearts and in increasing our appreciation of His blessings. And I'm really pleased to introduce the next lecture, the next speaker on the topic of nanoparticles. And inshallah, with no further ado, I will ask our brother to begin, inshallah.
So, my name's Ahmed Khan. About 12 years ago, I retrained into biochemistry, and in particular looking at particles. 2 years ago, I undertook my MPhil, it's by research, looking at nanoparticle structures. And now I'm in the process of doing my PhD in a similar area. So whenever I mention to people nanoparticles, people start thinking of Star Trek and all the rest of it. It's not. It's how we classify things which are very small. So if you look at 1 millimeter, in that 1 millimeter, if you can imagine it, that's 1 centimeter. In that 1 centimeter space, there are a million nanoparticles, a million, in that little small space. When we look at drug structures and vitamins and minerals, they come in at about 25 to 60 nanometers. That means 60 times 1/1,000,000th of a millimeter. So they're very, very small. Our cell structures of how the body makes cells, because people always talk about cell structures and it does this and it does that. A cell structure is 20,000 nanometers. That is 1/5 of 1/50th of a millimeter. You can't see these things. They're just so small. We analyze to see what they are we use laser beams, and what the laser beam does is it will shoot a laser at a liquid structure, and then what it does is when it hits a particle, the laser will give a signal, and with those signals we work out how big a particle is. So you have to imagine that these things are very, very complex, even though they're at unbelievably small magnitude. And the more you research about the human structure, the more you will understand that this was done not by chance. It is very, very much fashioned. And this is what Allah says, I am the creator. He totally is the creator. These things should not function in the way they are if it wasn't to a set plan. Every one of them is in a set plan. So if I take the analogy that the vitamin C molecule is the size of a normal football that you see people playing football with, then you will understand what we're talking about, the magnitudes. The cell, in comparison, is the size of 2 football fields. So if the molecule of vitamin C is the football, the cell is the size of 2 football fields. In that 2 football fields, everything that goes in the cell and comes out of the cell is structured. There is no anomaly. It's done to a pattern. It is done so well and so efficiently that when we try and mimic that structure to have drugs, painkillers, chemotherapy drugs going into that cell, we have no idea in the same analogy, if the drug now is the football, we have no idea in the football pitch where it goes. No idea. But when Allah does it, every nutrient goes to the right place. You know, it's incredible. The football always goes to the right place in Allah's plan. When we try and do painkillers and everything, we have no idea where it ends up in those two football fields. Amazing. Now, if that's the size of the cell, in comparison, how big do you think a millimeter is then? That's how big a millimeter is in comparison to the two football fields. The dot in the middle is Acock's green, and it stretches virtually the whole of the circumference from the centre outwards. The circumference is the whole of Birmingham. It's approximately 3.8 miles from the centre out. In that, I tried to work it out, there's like 10,000 of those football fields that fit in there. That's 1 millimetre. So in that 1 millimetre, we have over 10,000 cells. In our body, we have over 2 trillion cells. Each one of them is designed and structured in a very, very organized way. You would think with that many cells, it'd get it wrong if it was chance. It doesn't get it wrong. The only time the cells mutate is when there's human interactions gone wrong. And these are things that Allah has kind of forbidden that we should do. Drinking alcohol will mess up your cells. Smoking, taking drugs, all these things have a massive effect on your cell structure. The things that Allah tells you to do, which is, eating halal and tayyib, has no major effect on the body. Anything which is alien causes the cells to really mutate. So that is the comparison. Now you'd think, if it's by chance, can you imagine that football field? I mean, can you imagine the molecule? How would it know how to get into that 3.6 kilometer radius? It goes in exactly the right place. It's amazing. There's no chance, there's no deviation from it. It's absolutely set. And when we build like painkillers and chemotherapy drugs and anything like that, the best we can do is get it onto the football field. We have no idea where on the football field it will end up. If we get it there, it's a major, ticking box achievement. Whereas Allah does this mechanism by getting nutrients into the cells on a daily basis. Not even daily, it's like every millisecond he's doing it. Things are going in, things are going out. And they're very uniformed. There's no chance in it. This is why you'll realize that when you do research and you're at that research, what we call the cutting edge, 2 types of people end up. Those who affirm their belief in a God, and those who will know that there's a God, but they don't want to believe it. And you have to humble yourself at this level because you realize you're getting close to the essence of what He's created. And Allah gives you signs all the time. I'll give you signs inside and outside that I'm here. And when you look at these things, you think, subhanAllah, that shouldn't work like that if it was chance. But it does. It is one of the most effective and efficient systems on the planet. And I was just talking to the brother here that if each cell sends back information about how healthy it is and what it's doing and whether it needs new nutrients, etc. If there's 2 trillion of those cells, imagine it's like having 2 trillion computers. The amount of information that comes in and out of those cell structures would completely fill all the cloud systems on the planet in a day. That's that much information. And it is organized in such a way that all that information goes to one particular organ in the body, and that's the brain. And it regulates everything. It's incredible. This is what Allah says that this is not a deen for people who don't ponder and reflect. Once you understand that essence, you know that your deen gets stronger. And you also humble yourself that you actually know nothing. People who think they're really at the leading edge of science, they actually know nothing. And whenever I see these things, I always ponder. It is incredible the way it's been constructed. When we look at that same structure for building medicine drugs, chemotherapy, painkillers, anti-inflammatories, etc. What we do is we try and mimic the way the body takes things into the cell. It's at cellular level where you make a difference that you can start getting things to work on a painkiller. Whether it's in the brain, in the rest of your body, that's how it works. So a painkiller, what it will do is it will try and get through into the brain and block a receptor, which is causing the nerve to trigger, to give you pain sensation. Does anybody want to give me some sort of figure on how much of a percentage of a drug gets to where it needs to get to?
1%.
You're close. It's about 3%. 3% of a drug will get to where it needs to get to. The rest just gets flushed out. In comparison to the way Allah does the drug delivery system, when it comes to nutrients, pretty much all of it gets delivered. Very little is not delivered.
Injection.
Injection has to do the same process. It goes into the bloodstream, but then after it gets into the bloodstream, it still has to get into the cell. And the cell is designed not to let things in. It's mainly designed to not let things in. Plus, it's designed secondary to not let things go out. Because if the cell structure was damaged, we just dissolve. We'll literally just dissolve. And it is an incredible system that he's created. Imagine around that football field that there are guards all the way around it, and they're touching. But there's enough gap to let certain things in, without letting bigger things in as well. So when I hear these things like, nutrients going into the body, Allah's structure is such that if a nutrient above a certain size tries to get into your blood, the whole of the immune system wakes up, because it's an alien particle. So even with injections, what they have to do is subdue the immune system. Otherwise, it will just wake up and start killing it, because it's designed in that way. And the immune system is completely, that's a topic in itself. I mean, literally it's a topic in itself. It's incredible how he's done it. But yes, so if it's 3% of any drug that gets into your body, when we try and mimic what Allah's created, what we do is, when we compare it to what Allah created, it's incredible. Right? So, when we are fashioned in our mother's womb, we're growing at an exponential rate. The mitosis, in other words, cell creation, is incredible. However, most of the organ structures, and most of the way we are now, are not constructed. They're being constructed. The best way to look at it is, you're trying to change the tire of your car on the motorway while you're driving at 70 miles an hour. So the cells are trying to make your gut, your liver, your kidneys, but at the same time, you need nutrients to build those. So it's an incredible way that Allah's done it, that nutrients have to be given to the fetus in the womb, but at the same time, it's trying to build the structures to deal with those nutrients. So the way Allah did it was incredible. I mean, it's just unbelievable how he did it. So through the umbilical cord, every nutrient that your mother gives to you while you're being created in your mother's womb for those 9 months are put in a way which that nutrient has a frequency to go to a particular place without you having a mouth and a gut and a stomach, because it's trying to build those structures. So what happens is, mom eats food, chicken, liver, the usual handies and what have you. The body in the mom's womb now breaks up those nutrient structures, and half of it will go to sustain mom's life, and a percentage will go through the umbilical cord to feed the fetus. Right? But the fetus doesn't have a stomach at this point, so how's it supposed to eat? It can't go through the mouth. There's no mouth. There's no stomach, there's no gut, there's no liver, there's no kidneys, there's nothing. They're being made. So what happens is, the umbilical cord goes straight into the stomach area of the baby. And it goes directly into the bloodstream. And because it goes into the bloodstream, these particles that we were talking about, the nutrients, they're put into a DNA structure which the fetus understands as mom, so its immune system doesn't wake up, and it feeds each individual part of the body. It just keeps flushing around the bloodstream, which is being built, and just feeds the cells. In growth, yeah. And then at the same time, the waste structures of these particles going in and doing their thing is being sent out through the umbilical cord back into mom. And mom puts it back into her, excretion system. It's incredible. So you couldn't imagine building something like that. You're feeding something while it's trying to build, because we have no gut structures. But the particles themselves, they're so small and they're being charged that they go, this one's for liver, this one's for kidneys, this one's for heart, this one's for spleen, and it just does it. It just does it. And then people turn around to me and say, chance. No chance. It's just stupid. It's just, for me, as a scientist, to think that it's chance, it's just stupid. Because the probability would mean that, all the structures would go to a certain place where most of the blood is going, which tends to be the heart, the liver, and the brain. So then why does some of the structures go to the kidney then? There's no direct. Kidney has a blood structure, but it's peripheral. It's on the outskirts of the main part when the fetus is being built. So it's just bonkers when I hear it. But what we do is we try and mimic that structure that mum uses to feed the baby and use it to do drug delivery. We use the same process. We give it a frequency. If we've got a chemotherapy drug, we will coat it in something that will give it a frequency, like an electrical charge, which will be opposite to where we want to send it. So if we want to send it to the brain, and the brain's giving out a positive frequency, we'll give a negative frequency at the same level. And the science is it will travel through the blood and get to where it needs to get to, because that's the way mom does it. And mom doesn't even think she's doing it. She doesn't get up one morning and work out the frequencies of all the food. She just does it.
So when you say frequency, it's not electrical?
It's electrical pulse. Yeah, it's a pulse.
Right.
You can pick it up on a very, very accurate oscilloscope. It's not one of the ones that you see at the hospitals. These are like, because these parts. It normally in dBs. It's in dBs, but it's a very low frequency. You've got to pick them up, and it's literally that cell is giving out this number. And if you can do the reverse, then opposites will attract.
And you've got charge in it by firing.
So this is where we put on. So imagine that you've got the drug, which is like chemotherapy, painkiller.
Yes.
On the outside of that, you build something which is very similar to the cell structure of the human cells. On the outside of that, you give it electrical charge. And what happens then is those things will go through your body and potentially get to the organ you want to target. Pretty much the same way as mom does it. And mom doesn't even think about it, she just does it.
Cells, each individual cell is looking for a charge on a certain.
So it does it mainly on tissue level. So the tissue that makes up the structure of the liver cell, they'll pretty much all have a uniform range of a frequency. And what you do is you look at that liver structure and say, the liver might have minus 20 dB structure as a frequency that it's giving off from the cells. You do the opposite. So what you're thinking is, if I can get it into the blood, the drug, which I'm taking, whether it's painkillers or whatever it is, then now that I've put a charge to it, it should get to a bit more than 3% should get to the liver. That's the idea. If you can get it to 6%, it's incredible. Double the amount is incredible. You'll see tumors just shrink because you've increased it. It's that that higher emphasis that we put on it. But mom does it without any system, process, structure. She just does it. She just feeds the fetus without even knowing. Subhanallah. It's incredible. I mean, the more you look into these things, the more you realize that this is not chance. This is a structured plan. You'll find in the higher echelons of research, you'll see people will agree that there's an architect or a created entity. They won't never say God. It's like if you say the word, God or omnipotent being, Allah, and that, they think you're crackers, you're thick. But in reality, that's what it is. And Allah says it, He gives you clues all the way through in research. All the time there's clues. And that's a drug structure. That's how you do it. You do exactly how Mom did it. You take the drug, you put it into a packet. The packet has a charge, and it goes into the body. We have still not perfected where in those 2 football fields it will go. We have no idea. We know it will get in there.
Just get it past the guard.
Yeah, get it past the guards, and then it's like potluck. You know, Allah knows best what's going to happen to it. We have no idea at that level but when Mom feeds fetus, Allah knows exactly where that nutrient's going. Is
That
it?
pathway, it still hasn't been
No,
found.
we don't know it. We have no idea. We're guessing. You know, does it go into the cytoplasm, which is part of the cell? Does it go into the ribosomes? Does it go into the mRNA? Does it go into, you know, the mitochondria? Does it just sit in, you know, the secondary cytoplasm before it gets somewhere? We don't know. Whereas when Allah does it, it goes exactly where it needs to go to. And the transactions within that cell, which is those 2 football fields, are millions during the day. Millions. It doesn't get the coding wrong. And people still say it's chance. It's amazing. It's amazing. I was talking briefly about the communication that it does at cell. It does it at the cell, then it does it at the tissue, then it does it at the organ, then it does it at the system. So systems are things like the respiratory system, the digestive system. At organ level is the one that we really look at. Does the liver give a certain frequency? Does the kidney do this? Because for us, it's to do the opposite, to send, you know, life-saving medication to it. But what Allah does is incredible. So every organ will send out a frequency, which is unique almost to that organ. And we do things like, so apart from just doing particle analysis to see how big a particle is, we'll do things like, what's the word now? We will have a particle and we will put it near another particle and we'll see whether or not it attracts or repels. If it attracts, then we know we've got it right. One's a positive, one's a negative. If it repels, then we know they're either both negative or both positive, and they won't come together. It's like magnets. You know, for a magnet to work, you've got to go opposite, plus to minus, and minus to plus. If you've got 2 pluses, they just repel. So we do analysis like that to see which particle we could put on a drug structure to go to somewhere. Right? And then before we do that, we would want to know what frequency is the liver giving out, what electrical pulses are giving out. And then we will adjust that positive or negative to see whether or not we can deliver it to the liver or to the kidneys. But in that relationship, or those signals and the messages, if you look at it, Allah does it all the time. Our bodies do it constantly. They're constantly sending out messages. Thermostatic messages, I'm too hot, too cold, etc. Nutrient messages. I need to do cell replenish, you know, I need certain amino acids because I need to replenish some of my cells. It also instigates when a cell dies. It has to die. Cells have to die, otherwise you won't get the next part of the rebirth happening. And to this day, we have no idea why they just trigger and start to die. They just trigger and die. Perfectly healthy cell, and today it was healthy, 10 minutes later, it's time to die, it just dies. A message comes from the brain, goes to the cell, kill yourself. And it just does it. And as it's dying, the next one's replenishing it. It's amazing. And even when the cell is dying, the proteins go back to the liver and reconstitute it. Talk about recycling. You know, subhanAllah, it recycles its own protein structures. Doesn't waste them. You know, so when you look at these things, you cannot accept that it's chance, because it's an ecosystem. And this is what, when I first came across these frequency things, that's when it got me thinking about, you know, what Allah says, on that day your body will talk. You know, literally he'll plug you in like a USB stick and all your information will come back, all of it. Every one of your, every interaction that happens at cellular, tissue, organ, system level is being registered. The brain keeps track of it. Every single one of them. None of them gets deleted, and none of them gets override. There's no systems update, there's no reformatting the hard drive. Once it happens, everyone is being logged. From the time you were born until the time you die, every transaction is being logged. And when I came across this system, when I was looking at it, I didn't pick the whole thing. I just wanted to know the frequency thing. And the first ayah that came to my head was, on that day, he's going to plug you in. And all your, everything you ever did, everything you ever saw, everything you ever touched is going to come back. Everything. And he gives you hints on that. You know, subhanAllah. He gives you hints. So for those who have a belief in Allah, Deen, the omnipotent being, it reinforces it. There's no contradiction in it. Contradictions seem to happen when there's dogma from human beings, not from what Allah states. It's clear. It's absolutely crystal clear. And once you realize this thing, you'll always realize that the Quran is always one step ahead of what you're researching. Always. Always. So the one that we're looking at now, which we're not sure, is whether or not we can do. So one of the issues with sending people on deep space journeys is not actually how, the distance in years from here to Mars or wherever it is. It's the impact at cellular level on your body. It's incredible. So the idea is, could we at some point build suspended animation to slow the whole body down? When we read Surah Kahf, when they went into the cave and they didn't know if they were 300 years or 309 years. That. Can we just slow it right down? Like in the sci-fi movies. Because it's the cellular decomposition which causes rapid aging. Because when they send people up into space and that, but when they come back down, sometimes they've lost a third. They've accelerated their aging by like 5 years. It's incredible. I mean, I worked on a project with a friend of mine for NASA, and it was about, here we take it for granted that when you drink something, it's going to absorb. What happens in no gravity? You just keep going up and down, up and down. It doesn't go anywhere. So when you drink it, there's no gravity to keep it down. It just goes back up, goes back down, comes up. So what they were finding was they were getting malnutrition because they couldn't absorb the food. So we had to look at it at a cellular level, that as soon as you take it, can it go straight into the blood, rather than going to something. So this thing about slowing down that cell breaking and dying thing, because we do that when we sleep anyway. Our body goes to a third of what it does when we're awake. It's a third, because that's the only way that we can replenish. Because
third of processes.
Yeah, we get to a third of the process. We're barely alive. It's like what Allah says. He says, you look as if you're dead, because we're only running a third. And that process that Allah's created to do that cell regeneration at a third is the only possible way that the body can replenish. You cannot. All these people who take, liver enhancement and all this other stuff. How can you give the liver enhancement if the liver is doing the work to break down the nutrients? It's working double the amount. The only time it works is when you're asleep. And I remember a surgeon told me something a long time ago. He said, this is the essence of those who struggle to get up for Fajr, right? If you struggle, just look at it this way. You will get all of your hormonal drop into your bloodstream if you're awake at Fajr. If you're asleep at Fajr, you will get the amount that you need, which is a third, or thereabouts. This is why you will have hormonal problems, and it takes a number of months to get to that point. Could take years. So if you want all the hormones that you need for your body to stay active and replenished, you need to get up for Fajr. Have to get up for Fajr. They know that. Non-Muslims know that now. Why do you think these idiots start getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to the gym? Because they know at that time, you are going to be at the most alert. If you're awake and your hormonal drops, that's the time. Because it doesn't work on clocks. It works on what time the sun's going to come up.
You were mentioning before that hospitals, they're waking patients.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They give medication at that point. You think, let this guy go to sleep. No, he or she needs their hormonal drop. This is why it's so critical that, from a molecular point of view, not to miss your fajr, not to miss it. Regardless of, from a deen point of view, you shouldn't do it anyway. From a molecular point of view, don't miss your fajr. And then from a cellular point of view, food should be good, halal, and good for you. Not just halal, not just halal. I did an analysis a couple of years ago that if you have a high meat diet and you eat meat twice a day and you've done it for 10 years, one of the theories is why antibiotics don't work anymore is because you're taking that amount in your food, because it's been given to the animals. Growth hormones, antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, it's given to the animals. That cellular structure doesn't just go away, we absorb it. And that's what happens. These things are, Allah tells you that again and again, halal and tayyib, but he also says, what is it, the word? The earth will speak against you on that day, what you did to it. I never thought that learning about this sciencey thing, I would become, what these people call eco-warriors or whatever nonsense they call it. But it is essentially, we've been given a viceroy of the planet. And we're also given a viceroy of our bodies as well. So that's why I try and keep these interactions, these talks, very high level, that I don't go into the deep, the bits and the bytes. You don't need to. Comparisons are pretty good if you look at it, like I said. So in summary, we have about 2 trillion cells in our body. 2 trillion. And each one of them is being fed by a system. Incredible. And if you look at the analogy of the football field, the ball goes exactly where it needs to. It doesn't get kicked in, It's not like the way I kick a football, where it goes all off the pitch and that. It goes where it needs to. And, people want to go to Mars and all these other places to learn things. We don't even know what our body does. We don't even know what our body does. There are structures in the body that you'd think, why are they doing that for? In the heart structure, in the heart structure, there's a neuron setup which goes to emotions. You think it'd go to motor neuron, get the heart pumping. It goes to emotions. In the cortex, if you look at it, it goes to the part of the brain which deals with emotions. That's what Allah says. The deen needs to go beyond, needs to hit your heart. And it has these things. I'm no scholar of Islam. I look at it from a scientific point of view. And what I find doesn't contradict what I read.
It's only in sync.
Yeah, it's in sync, absolutely in sync.
It affirms it,
Yeah, it affirms it. It affirms it. So that was pretty much it.
No, okay, so that's fascinating, mashallah. Do we have any questions from the audience before I start asking my questions? Any questions from...
Yeah, I've never really understood that some of the most fervent atheists tend to be some of the most high-ranking scientists around. I've never really, because you've just got to take a broad look at things to understand that there's got to be a creator, there's got to be designing this, but they just refuse to believe it. I really cannot get my head around it. It's like showing somebody black and they're saying it's white, literally.
You find that a lot of them are agnostics. They know there's something out there, but leave me out of it.
Yeah.
I know you're there, leave me out of it. A lot of... You got to remember that when you spend as much time as you want, really, it's up to me how much time. I have access to my lab 365 days a year, 24/7. I can go in whenever I want and run whatever compounds I want to. You've got to remember that when it comes down to, so that's the closest, I would say, you're going to get to what I would call haqq, truth. That's the closest. You're trying to keep the bias out of it, but I know people fudge their results. I know they fudge their results. That's the closest you're going to get to truth. When it gets to writing papers and journals, we're already into a bit of battles, going into a bit of bias, a bit of whatever. By the time you get into books at undergrad and A levels, it's whatever meets the requirements. It's not necessarily absolute truth. It's what fits the paradigm. At the top level, you'll realize that when you run things, the theory will tell you it should go A, B, and C. It actually comes X, Y, and Z. And you'll sit there for weeks and months and you go, why did it come out like that? According to this journal I read, I've mirrored a similar thing and I've got this, but they've got that. And then you realize it's not absolute science. Nothing is. When they tell you about constants, they're not really constants. How do you know it's a constant? You have to accept that it's a constant. It's like when I use a laser to work out particle size, I have to accept that this has been frequency checked and it's da-da-da-da. But many times I've put the same sample into 2 different machines, I've got 2 different answers. Now what? But at A levels and undergrad level, that's absolute. It's the equivalent of non-Muslim haqq. But in reality, how did I get one particle in one machine, same sample, same dilution, same preparation? I split one and put it into machine A and I put the other one into machine B. Machine A is telling me the particles are 150 to 200 nanometers average. This one's telling me 400. How did that work? It's got the same parameters, it's got the same time, it's got the same analysis, the same sample size, everything. This is telling me it's 4 times bigger than this one. Now, for unscrupulous people, they would put the one which makes sense to their journal. Whatever you want to sell. If the 400 one makes sense, you put the 400. If the 150 makes sense, you put the 150. But you know, as a scientist, that you've got something which is 4 times bigger or 3 times bigger. And you get it. And the thing is, this is why I always say to people that to give dawah at that kind of esteemed level, you've got to be part of it. You've got to be part of it. And then when you do give dawah to people, they think, well, he's not a complete idiot, because he's getting some really good results and stuff that he's working on, and they're far more likely to listen. I say it all the time when somebody asks me, yeah, I believe in God. I have no issue. In the middle of conversations with the rest of the peer group, well, I have no issues. That's how I can prove it with the instruments we've got in the lab. And they go, what? And I say, see, people can't, they can't comprehend this type of thing. If you think a drug is the size of a football and your cell is the size of 2 footballs, and it knows exactly where to go. The nutrient knows exactly where to go. The drug just goes in the football field. There's a structure. It has to be. There's a design.
Yeah, they just tell you, expect you to just take on.
Yeah.
Not ask any questions. Like what Matt said the other time when he said there's something in front of the eye that really your brain filters that way out so you can see it, the full vision. But if your brain didn't do that, you see the stuff in front of your eye, you can get a clear vision and stuff, but they don't tell you why that's happening.
They don't know. We actually don't know.
I think definitely there's a worldview that's behind that affects how people view the results that they show. So if it's gonna align with that, because for them they have to they don't want anything actually to really lead to people coming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Unfortunate as it is to say, in the last 100 years or so, there's been a specific and direct attack in the belief in God, whether it's from the communist East or the capitalist West, in a less direct form. But the belief in God generally has been attacked. So for you to be, to even appear as if you're educated, you have to be someone who doesn't really believe. You want to be someone who's unbiased, and that's the position that they want to portray. But
On the other side of that, you got people with hardly any education who are falling into these the tough to pain and all that kind of stuff, isn't it? So their belief is so strong that they will believe anything blindly.
You don't want to
So much of the
One thing I understood from what you were saying, this whole supplements industry, so people are getting supplements or liver, kidney, it's all you say 3% of that is going into the cell. It's not really working. Supplements is massive. What would you say on that?
So I have a number of friends who are nutrition.
Asking about his protein shake and everything else.
No, not protein. Protein is like a food really. I'm talking about the supplements with vitamins. You have shilajit, all those other ashwagandha, all these things. What would you say about?
Even at 3%, they do quite a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have friends who kind of work for. They're in the nutrition industry, and they work for like football clubs and whatever. And I always say to them, I said, which of the two of us is going to find out about a particle first? You or I? Nutritionists will tell you things. They'll tell you things like leaky gut, right?
Yeah.
Leaky gut. Explain to me what that is at molecular level, please. To this day, I'm still waiting. It's when you have partial damage to the actual microphyllae of your actual gut lining. The gut lining has been damaged, right? But when I see these videos and I see these big particles going into, they can't go into your blood. Your immune system will wake up. You get sepsis straight away. You can't get these massive particles like the size of flying machines. You see some of them on the diagrams, and they always come out of strange places around the world. I'm not going to mention where they are. I mean, I kind of know these countries, and they come up with strange things. But they'll tell you things like your gut is leaking into your stuff from your gut is leaking into your blood, and your blood's leaking into your gut. You'd be dead. You'd be physically dead within minutes if that happened, because the blood is a sterile environment. What goes in there is only allowed to go in there. Not any old particle can go in there. And you see these particles big as spaceships going into, you think, that's bigger than the cell. Oh, what are you on about? The body has a unique way of taking up nutrients. It is designed in that way. It has been perfected in that way. Because we have been created. We haven't randomly come together. Because if we randomly came together, why are certain parts of the actual anatomy structured in everybody in the same way? Because they're designed. The reason why our intestines are 9 meters long and curly-whirlied is to help nutrients hit the side, accumulate in reservoirs, and then drop into your blood.
Sorry, repeat that again.
So, our intestines are 9 kilometers. Sorry, not 9 meters, 9 kilometers. We never digested. Are we still digesting from last year? They're about 9 meters, stuck in here, right? We're just underneath your diaphragm and just above, just slightly below your navel. That's where they're all stuck in there. And they're all bent and curled and everything. One of the reasons why it's been done like that is to slow down the time it takes from stuff going down your stomach to going out the other way. Because it wants to pick up as much of the nutrients as it can. As it goes round curves and bends, it hits the side of the intestines, where there are these finger-like things, which they grab them like magnets. And then slowly, these are the only cell structures which have the ability to throw things into the blood. They're not chance. This is why it takes on average between 4 to 6 hours to digest a complete meal. Because it has that time in that intestines. And they are so wrapped around, and the gravitational pressure pushes the thing through. That's where it works. And because they're all twisted and knotted inside your stomach, it means it has more time to get absorbed. So by the time everything is absorbed, it's literally the waste that comes out. Everything else is absorbed. And that's an incredible system.
It's not wasted.
It's not wasted. It's not wasted. And the microphyllae are like little fingers on the inside of that intestines. And what they do is they literally trap the nutrients. And because the nutrients have a charge, they get pushed in to the cell and dropped into the blood. But the blood doesn't come the other way. It doesn't go into your stomach. And nothing from your stomach, apart from the nutrient, goes into the blood. So you don't get leaky gut where your body's just disintegrating in itself. Those are fissures, damages to those microphyllae. They're damages. In other words, over a period of time, you've got more and more damages. In other words, the 4-hour window is not long enough. And the 9 meters is not long enough anymore. You need probably 12 meters or whatever it is, because a lot of it is being damaged. And damage occurs with what we eat, how much we eat, all these basic things that our parents used to teach us.
When you say how we eat, what do you mean by that? So eating too quickly or?
No, at that point, because when it's going into your intestines, the speed of eating is not the issue anymore. It's the volume that we're eating, and maybe the types of things we're eating. So when you eat and I had to do this because I had to explain it in one of the papers I had to write. When we eat really fatty foods, that's when our gallbladder has to wake up. Right? Has to wake up because it's fat. You can't let fat go in. You can't let long chain carbohydrates and fat structures go into your blood. I mean, you just cannot. You die. So what happens is the liver through the gallbladder will wake up and start sending out what they call bile salts. And these bile salts are designed to snip up the long chain polymers of oils and fats. Once they're split up, this is why it's unique how it does it. Once they're split up, they accumulate around themselves and encapsulate themselves. Then they are able to go down into the intestines. So imagine it, you've eaten, I don't know, a kebab or something, right? Which is protein structures, long chain, a little bit of carbohydrates, which are long chain. When I mean long chain, I mean molecule after molecule after, just connected up in like a line. And then fat, which is again connected up in a line. Liver instigates a message to gallbladder saying release the mineral salts, things like calcium, things like magnesium, things to break up that structure. And the way it does is incredible, because the connection between each of the molecules is based on a particular molecule, a particular element, and it sends the opposite charge to it to break it. It breaks it. And people still say, we're made by chance. It does exactly what it needs to do. However, when we have too much of a particular food or structure, our bodies can't handle it. It's the same process with carbohydrates, like sugars. The body will snip it up, send it into the bloodstream with a particular structure, and says this one goes there, this one goes there. And then it's up to the insulin to pull it through the cell wall and throw it into the middle part where the energy source of the cell is, which is, they're like little batteries called mitochondria. They do all the cell energy. That's where the energy of the cell comes from. But if you have too much sugar in your diet and it's going around the blood, but there's only a finite amount of insulin, now you're in trouble. The insulin won't change. It won't suddenly double the amount because you've got a huge amount of carbohydrates coming in. It has a threshold because it's made from a gland. But now you've got more carbohydrates coming into the system. And they're not just from like eating sweets, chocolates and that. It's from other type of carbohydrates as well. When we eat too much roti and pakore and all that has an effect as well. It all gets converted into a particular thing and gets thrown into the blood. Now the problem is we have a sedentary lifestyle as well, like we don't do any exercise. So if you don't do any exercise, those batteries in your cell never get used anyway. Now you're trying to put more energy in there. So the first energy is not being used, and you're throwing more energy into it. Sooner or later the cell goes, I can't handle it. Get rid of it. Can't take any more in. It makes the signaling decision no more. So all that carbohydrates is now flushing around your blood is now poisonous to you because it's not going anywhere. The cells can't take any more up. Your insulin has done as much as it can. It can't bring any more insulin in to pull it through. And even if it could, where's it going to go? It can only go to those batteries in your cells. It can't go anywhere else because it's poisonous. And the amazing thing is, when it gets into the cell, like those two football fields, it's like a train system that takes it to the individual places. It's incredible. When you look at it, it's like it jumps onto a train and it takes you, well, it's not really a train, it's more like a tram. And it will take you to the particular parts of the cell. This goes here, that goes there, that goes here, that goes there. Oh, and all the waste goes on the reverse bit out. And then at the same time, we've realized that not every part of the cell has gates, certain parts. And the way Allah has created the cell, it's made up of those guards, but because it's spherical, it's like an oval shape. There are thin guards like me, and then there's big guards that go around the corners. Because if you had a thin guard, you're going to get too much of a gap. So you got big guards on the corner bits, and on the straight bits, weedy guys like me. And it's incredible. You never think that structure would work. And at the same time, when a nutrient goes in, it doesn't go where the big guys are. It goes where the skinny guys are because there's more of a gap. And it knows that if it gets breached there, it can recoup behind it. But if it gets breached on a curve, it could be major rupture for the cell. When you learn this thing at that level, you think, that's not chance. That's created. That's not chance, no chance. How would it know how many of the big guards and how many of the skinny guards it needs in a cell which is 20,000 nanometers, and the molecule kind of come in is less than 60? How does that know? And no breaches occur, none. Nothing leaks out of the cell into the blood, and nothing gets from the blood into the cell unless it's allowed to. It's like a visa system. Just look at that, sorry. That visa's no good, go to the next cell. That's what it does. The signals it sends out are incredible. It sends it out at molecular level, which then goes to the nutrient in the blood to say, that's where you need to go. You need to go there. Not that cell, don't bother knocking on his door, there. And there are 2 trillion in our body. 2 trillion or whatever, something like 2 trillion cells. It reinforces that this is created. Oh, and the last one is, you'll hear a lot of people saying, oh, we made cell structures. They didn't make anything. They have to use a donor cell to start off with. They didn't make it. Allah made it from nothing. He just told the angels, go and collect the mud, and I'll do it. We have to take it from an incubator, and then we have to defrost the thing, and then we have to give it the nutrients, and then this thing it's like making yogurt. You have to start off with something. It's like making cafe. You can't just make it from nothing. He made it from nothing, zero. And once you start the process, then you start making cells, but you need a starting cell. If there's no starting cell, you're finished. That's why you'll see a lot of the research that they're doing at the moment is into stem cells, because the stem cell structure is taken from the placenta on average of the newborn baby, because those cells they're almost sterile, inert, nothing's hit them yet. So what they're looking for is there a chance I could take this stem cell structure and implant it into a living organ tissue to grow more cells? But there's an issue, which I didn't know until I spoke to a friend of mine. He's a kidney surgeon from, I think it's Guy's Hospital, and he told me something about, when you have a kidney transplant, even with the immunosuppressants, because it's somebody else's DNA stuck in your body, it's alien. The body wakes up and starts to kill it. You know what it does? SubhanAllah, I didn't know this. Even with the suppressant drugs, before they take effect, your own body builds a gate around it. It says, I have no idea who you are, but you're not going to come into me. And the cells just almost encapsulate it and kind of like, restrict stuff going to it. So what the immunosuppressants do is try to, it's all right. So, no, Randy, he's all right. He's one of us. Let some nutrients get through. You'll kill him. But that's what the body does. It almost blocks the roots in that supplies it with oxygen and nutrients. And he says, nah, I don't know who you are.
We don't have that kidney example. There's cases where an organ's been in the body for an extended period of time, the body naturally accepts it as one of its own. So there are patients who have transplants who aren't really immunosuppressants, and they work perfectly fine. The body sort of accepted it. This is a replacement part inside me, but I would work with it.
Yeah.
But some people, on the other hand, they're on immunosuppressants for the rest of their
Yeah,
life.
yeah, pretty much.
You stop taking them, they get sepsis and
Yeah.
everything else. And the body sort of self-combusts from the inside.
One thing you get. So I only look at cell structures because I look at that 6% drug increase structure. That's what I look at. You know, that's my research area. Other people do other things. They look at other areas. But it also makes me think that when when Allah says that the oceans wouldn't be enough for the words I had to write, right? And you think, hold on, mate, there are 400 people on campus who are scientists. And collectively, our knowledge is not a zit in front of us. You know, it's not even nothing. It's not even worth even mentioning. And it's incredible. Allah says it. You have to humble yourself if you want to learn. You have to. If you're arrogant, you won't learn. You know what you'll get. And I know people who do like that. When they come to write up their papers and they go their CVs and that, all their write-up is, oh, so-and-so taught me, so-and-so taught me. In other words, what they taught was rubbish, what they learned is rubbish. So they have to just say, here's my lineage. You know, name dropping. Yeah, he's pretty good, so I'll name drop him or her. But when you look at their research, you think, it doesn't make sense. Because a lot of people will do PhDs just to get the doctorate. They have no intention to research this thing ever again. You know, it's just doctorate. Dr. Salbaga, you know. Yeah. But in reality, if you're going to research these things, it's fundamental that you by the grace of Allah, you do something with it. You know, there's no point in researching this thing if you're not going to do anything with it. What's the point? You get a doctorate. You know, Allah says it's clearly, you'll learn till the end of your life. It's not 3 years to get a PhD and then you think some sort of godlike creature. You're not. You're not.
Can you just quickly give the example of where you told me before about where we have patients where the spine has...
Oh, yeah. So, it's hard for people to understand this, but nerve systems are not, they're not like millimeters. Some nerve structures will go from the brain all the way down to your toe, and it's the same structure. So when it gets severed, cut, broken, whatever you want to call it, if it's in the foot region, you'll get numbness. In other words, it's being triggered all the time, or you'll get damage, it's being squashed or something. But in reality, they all start off in the brain and end up somewhere in the motor neuron, whether it's extremities like hands, feet, etc., or organs. Organs have them. Otherwise, your heart won't beat. It doesn't know how to beat. It gets a signal from the brain saying beat, 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 and it does it. So, with the central nervous system, it's where most, if not all, of those neurons go up into the back of the head, the medulla, and then up into wherever they need to go, the motor neuron. I can't remember, it's not my area. But when it gets severed, it means that the electrical pulse cannot get down to where it needs to trigger. So there's an electrical pulse and then there's a chemical reaction. So when we want to pick up a glass, it's first an electrical, then it's a chemical to actually grasp and do what you need to do in it. And that's how a nerve works. When it gets cut, like from the neck down or the waist down, it's severed. What we're looking to do is, we're looking to put a nanoparticle fused at each part of that break. But we've also noticed that we have to literally dip it in your DNA, otherwise your body's going to reject it. It's a huge thing that you're just stuck on the central nervous system. The immune system will wake up and do all sorts of things. So if we find out where it's severed, we'll put a nanoparticle at the top, fuse it, like weld it there, and weld one at the bottom. And we'll dip it in your own DNA. And then even if your central nervous system has been cut and you get no feeling in your legs or from the neck down, it doesn't mean that the brain isn't still firing. 9 times out of 10, if not more, it's still firing. It still believes it's got hands and legs and arms that it can move. So on that same basis, we will use that electrical charge to actually get those two particles to send the electrical pulse across. And the theory is it will get your legs and arms and whatever to work. Which isn't that far-fetched as to how the fetus does it initially. So,
People who've had limbs severed and amputated still feel.
yeah.
Feel in their arms and their feet,
Yep.
even though there's nothing there.
From a physical motor neuron, there's nothing there. But from a neurological, it's still there. It's still there. It's still firing away. And when you look at it, and they put them through the CAT scan and check the brain, you think, well, why is his brain firing? If it's paraplegic from the neck down, he's still doing it. Still firing. Because the sever has occurred beyond the nerve instigation. It's beyond the brain. It's lower down. So that's the idea. Is maybe inshallah in, like, I don't know, 10 years time to have something like that, so implant it.
So does that mean that there's no sensor on that part of the nervous system?
It's been severed. It's been cut. It's like electrical wire just been cut.
Yeah. So if it's been cut, but there's no sensor to say, look, the child isn't getting through to the end. There's no reverse signal coming back.
Yeah, it doesn't degenerate. It still keeps sending it. It doesn't make the decision. I think his legs are gone. It doesn't know when legs are gone. There's no such command. Legs are gone. What does that mean? I just keep sending the same message. Are you there? No. Are you there? No. Are you there? No. It just keep doing it. It's like the heart. Allah's created such a thing that the heart beats without us telling it. Beat. Oh, thank you. Beat. Thank you. Oh, beat. Thank you. It just does it. It's a parasympathetic nervous system. It's the one that is in the background, does what it needs to do. So that beat to find out if you've got legs in that, it'll just keep doing it. But it doesn't know where the sever has occurred. We know it because we do oh, it's there. Oh, it's from the neck down or the waist down. But the brain doesn't know it. The brain just keeps firing. Like I said, even the amount of messes the brain, individual person's brain did with like 2 trillion computers, the cloud would be full. But we have an unbelievably structured sensory system that it just puts it into buckets. I'll read that later. It's like the inbox in your emails. I'll look at that one later. Oh, that's gone to junk. Those are the things that Allah will, on that day, from what I've seen, that makes me realize, oh yeah, every time I touch something, that's recognized. So everything your hands do, your eyes do, everything's recognized. They don't just go, they're registered. He picked up a glass at 8:20, whatever it is, and he put it down at 8:20, whatever it is.
That's what I mean. Possibility with brain cells refers to large food to sleep and if they took certain parts of your brain, people have said a memory was triggered.
Yeah.
They smell a certain smell,
Yeah.
tasted something that they might have eaten years ago.
Yeah.
So that proves obviously that memory's there somewhere, but you just can't access it.
Yeah, you can't access it.
Yeah.
The classic one is about memory. And look, I'm not a memory specialist in any shape or form. I'm not a specialist in anything, actually, to be honest. You get to hear conversations, right? You get to hear them. And I remember the one conversation is, why is it that when the child is born and it goes through its early life to toddler, why can't we remember any of those memories? Can't remember any of them. Considering we're a blank computer and we're just input device. You should be remembering all of this stuff. We don't remember it. But Allah also says to you, He says, at that point, you're kind of in this world and not in this world. So, how and who are looking after us, Allah knows best, as they say. We don't remember it. But we're an input device. We have no output at that point. We have no nothing. The only output sensory we have is crying. That's it. That's the major one we have, is crying. That's the only way we alert people, by crying. You can't shout mom or dad or nothing, we just cry. So if that's the case, where the rest of the time is just inputting, why can't we remember those memories? They're still there, but we can't get to them. And I know there's certain people mention that maybe that's when the fish are playing with them and they don't understand that thing. I don't know, Allah knows best. All I know is, I think the earliest memories I have are probably when I was about 3.5, when I was at kindergarten. That's it. Before that, no idea. So all these anomalies will come true on that day. You know? They're all in there. You know, subhanAllah. Amazing system that he's made.
Any other questions from anybody? So, today's lecture, I think, mashallah, has been fascinating because it's just another example of demonstrating Allah's power, Allah Ta'ala's design, Allah Ta'ala's power, Allah Ta'ala's greatness. And what always a person should bear in mind is that not only is it amazing to see it like play out in front of you, but also what's amazing is that Allah Ta'ala designed it all before He executed this.
Yeah.
So before He created the heaven and the earth for 50,000 years or so, everything was written.
Yeah.
All this is by design, and there's wisdom, and in all of these are lessons for us. And really, this life is just the beginning of a journey of knowledge about discovery, which we can never complete. We can only get to, even if you take like a drop in the ocean, but eternity is where that journey continues on to. And in a sense, life is there to be able to make you worthy of continuing that journey of discovery about Allah Ta'ala for eternity, to make you worthy of entering that domain, because you did what you did in this world, as short as a period as it was, and so much of Allah Ta'ala is on display for us. So really appreciate you coming in. May Allah Ta'ala bless you, bless your research, and hopefully inshallah we'll have a part 2 to this at some point, inshallah, and we look forward to our next session in this series. May Allah Ta'ala forgive us our sins and increase our iman. Ameen. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.